Hi, I'm Preston Williams, and welcome to another edition of Jazz Talk. Today on our show, we have a very special guest who needs no introduction. She has been on the scene for over 50 years and has worked with many greats from Thad Jones to Horace Silver, Sonny Rollins, Dizzy Gillespie, and Max Roach, to name a few. She is a three-time Grammy award-winning vocalist and composer and a Tony award-winning actress. Please welcome to Jazz Talk the greatest jazz singer alive today, the legendary Miss Dee Dee Bridgewater. There you go. You're back.
Hey.
You just went out again. I just
yeah,
gave you a
I don't know with my there. I heard you. Thank you.
Okay. Well, listen, Dee Dee, thank you so much for being on Jazz Talk today. It is an honor. I feel like I'm sitting before jazz royalty, and it's so good to have you on today.
So sweet.
And I know your career, I know your background very, very well. As I said, you've been on the scene for over 50 years. And when I say greatest jazz vocalist, that is true. There is no peer. I mean, you've done everything. But I'm curious to know a little bit more about your humble beginnings, your background. I understand that you are from Memphis, Tennessee, but you were born in Memphis, but you grew up in Flint, Michigan. Tell us a little about coming up and how you got involved in music.
Well, I thought growing up in Flint was fabulous because it was an industrial town and it was kind of flat, and we have all these lakes in the Flint area that we could go to, and it was, for me, it was fertile ground for daydreaming about what you were going to do to get out of there. So, I could always sing, and by my teenage years, in Flint, we were all excited in like 1962 when Motown started. And so we were all aspiring to go and audition for Motown Records and see if we could get on that label.
Yeah.
So I started a singing group. I had a singing group. We were a trio, three women, young women, and we called ourselves the Iridescents because that was a popular fabric back then. That show two sides of colors, two different colors. And I sewed, and we all sewed, and we made our outfits and all that kind of stuff. So we made our gowns out of iridescent fabric, and it was cute. But I grew up where jazz was played in the house. I would say more light jazz, nothing heavy duty. But my dad was, when I of jazz, my father was into piano trios and lesser known musicians, and his favorite trio, he had a trio and a quartet that he listened to, and there was a quartet Très Bien that was always playing, and then this trio was Roy Merriweather, the pianist Roy Merriweather.
Yeah, Dee Dee,
so we heard a lot of that, and then every once in a while I'd hear some Dizzy or some Miles.
Yeah.
And, whatever they would play in the house, because when I was growing up, we didn't have money to buy records, unless we were working.
Right.
And so when I started working, I wasn't interested in buying records. I was interested in buying clothes.
Right. Okay. I was going to ask you.
So
I was just going to ask you real quick. Your dad is also an educator. Well, he was a trumpet player too, wasn't he?
Yeah, my father played trumpet.
Yeah.
And at the time that I was a teenager, he was playing with a man in Flint, Michigan named Sherman Mitchell. And they had a quintet. Sherman was an alto player. And so every once in a while, by the time I was 16, I could sing with them. And I would sing sometimes with Sherman Mitchell at different restaurants in Flint and around Flint. And sometimes with the whole band, when they would do little special things. It was cute.
Yeah.
And then I auditioned when I was 16 for a couple of talent contests, because we used to have those a lot. I don't know. But in Flint we did. So I did that a lot. And I won one, and I came in second in another one. And I never thought that I was a great singer because I couldn't do the riffing that seems like is so innate with being Black today. All of that, hey.
Right.
And I listen to these children and I'm like, how do they do that? Because I just learned notes. Woo,
Right.
Hold that note. Don't bend that note. So I did a couple of gigs in some in some clubs in Flint. The Motor City was one, and I had to be chaperoned, and I had to sit in the bathroom. And my dad would go with me, and then I'd go out and sing my songs and go back. But, you know, and then I started doing a few gigs. By the time I was 17, I was doing a couple of gigs where I was getting paid in a club.
Yeah.
And I would just sing whatever was popular. I remember I really loved A House Is Not a Home. That was pretty popular at the time.
Everybody loves that
Dionne
song.
Warwick
Yeah.
and
Burt Bacharach.
huh?
Burt Bacharach, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Man, how she got, you know, I don't know what's going on with these. They might not be charged. We're gonna walk because I gotta
You take
get
your time, honey. You're good. You're good.
Well, you hear me, but I can't hear you.
Okay.
So I'm just walking as we talk.
Take your time, honey.
That's
Take your time.
okay. Keep going.
Okay. Okay. Can you still hear me? Can you still hear me?
Oh, I hear you. Now I hear you.
I was going to tell you, I
like
like the story that you told about having the daddy time, you know, you and your sister, and you were with your dad, and you went to a jukebox and you put on a song, not knowing what it was, and it was Horace Silver, Song for My Father. It blew your mind, didn't you? You're like, Dad, who is this? You know?
Yeah, I didn't put the song on. I had put some songs on, and then that song came on before.
Okay.
And that's how I discovered it. So it was, yeah, it was mind changing. It I don't know why that struck me so to this day. I don't know. I just remember when I heard dun dun boom boom.
Yeah.
I don't know, something about the rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
I remember another time. I always was fascinated with rhythm, and my mom took me to see a movie downtown at the Capitol Theater, and all I remember is it had to do with Africa, and there was a scene where this white actress is, you know, at in this village, and they're doing, I don't know, they're dancing around this fire, and she gets led, and all these drums are playing, and then she just gets entranced, and then she gets up, and I got entranced. And I got up, and I just remember my mama pulling me down. So I'm like, sit down, we're watching a movie. I was like, Mama, the drums. And I think I was about 12 or 13 then. So Africa's always attracted me, the drums. I spent, a few years when I was living in France trying to perfect my scatting so I could do interactions with drummers and get my licks together.
Yeah.
And I notice I'm still there. I love percussion.
You're great. Now you also went to Michigan State too, didn't you?
Yeah, but just a year.
Just a year?
1 year.
And you toured.
Yeah.
You toured the Soviet Union as well back in what, 69? Yeah, what was that like?
In 69, yes. I got to move again. I think these headphones are going out.
It's okay, honey. You're fine.
But as long as you can hear me. Now we're going upstairs.
Take your time. I can hear you fine. But yeah, you toured the Soviet Union back in 69. What was that experience like for you?
It was a lot of things. It was very exciting because I'd never been that far.
Yeah.
And I remember that the flight over was pretty terrifying. Everything was very clandestine if we were going to meet with people. And, because we were in the height of communism, we weren't really allowed to interact with other young people. And because that was coming after our, 1968, when we had all of this college uprising, young kids rising up. Although at that time, I didn't know what we were doing. I didn't know what people were doing. I didn't know why they were.
Right. Oh, Dee Dee, you froze. Oh, there you go. You're back. You
and
froze.
I think one of my AirPods was out.
Can you hear me?
There we go. I'm trying this, but you have to put the air. God have mercy. And then I won't hear those. I'm so sorry.
It is perfectly okay. Honestly, it is okay.
There.
Can you hear me?
Perfect. Yep.
Oh, perfect. Okay, great.
I think those AirPods need charging. Okay, I'm now going to sit back down. Whew,
Okay.
that
All
was
right.
a whole bunch of mess.
It's okay, honey. It's
Yeah, but
okay.
we had to, if we had a meeting, we had one meeting that I remember in Moscow, and when I went to Russia, it was still Leningrad. It wasn't
Hmm.
St. Petersburg,
Right.
but we had this clandestine meeting with Russian musicians, and it was organized by somebody out of the American embassy. And we had this bus that we rode from our hotel. And then we stopped and we had to get on the ground, and they turned the lights out in the bus so it looked like the bus was empty. And then we had to crawl out two by two and go through, this
Mm.
rapid walk and knock a certain way on the door, and the wooden slat opens, and you go down one level, and it's a 2-level basement. You have to go down 2 levels, and then you couldn't stand up all the way. You had to stand up hunched over, and it was just smoke filled. It was just amazing, all the smoke in there. But we jammed, and it was all acoustic, and we drank vodka.
That's incredible. Now, not long after that, I guess that year, or the following year, you met the great trumpeter Cecil Bridgewater. And
Yeah.
can you hear me?
I hear you fine. I
Okay,
said,
okay.
yeah, my
Good, good, good.
husband. I call Cecil my husband.
Yeah, he's a
I'm
great
his
musician.
were wife.
You are funny. You are so funny. Now, you guys moved. You guys moved to New York, and I guess you got a gig playing with Horace Silver. And oh, Dee Dee, you told an interesting story about what happened. I guess you and Andy Bay thought you guys were going to go up on the stage and bring you up there to sing. And you told a story that you started singing. I guess you got into the song, and Horace looks up at you, stops everything, and says, "Get off my stage." How
That's
did
right.
you how did you handle that? I mean, were you humiliated? Did you go sit down? Did you like run up to him afterwards? Horace, I'm sorry. What happened?
Well, I mean, it was the beginning of the song. I mean, so he told me to get off the stage. I hadn't asked him. I hadn't asked permission. Andy and I, we were young and silly, and we were all caught up in, that I was going to sing one of his songs, and we just knew he was going to like it. So, and the song was Love Vibrations.
Yeah.
And I had all my family there because, they were there to
Oh boy.
see Cecil and all of that, so it was humiliating. I remember, that I went out into the audience, and I went and sat with my mom and my stepdad. And, I knew I was wrong. So I guess maybe from my Catholic upbringing, I was able to digest it by, saying, I knew I was wrong, and that was to be expected. But what happened was, instead of me being hurt or anything, I was determined that I would show Horace that I could sing his music.
And boy, did you ever. Wow.
And you know what I'm saying? So that's was a weird way to take it, but that's how I took it.
Yeah.
And I guess I would attribute that aspect of myself, because you can't tell me no. If you tell me no, I'm gonna prove you wrong. Um, but I think it was part of, the Catholic doctrines that I was taught that always has made me, go
Mhm.
forward. That's one of the good things about the Catholic religion. That's one of the only good things.
Well, after playing with Horace, I guess you played with various musicians, but you hooked up with Thad Jones, and I guess that was sort of like the real beginning for you as far as really honing your jazz skills and learning about this music. What was it like working with Thad Jones and Mel Lewis?
I love Thad. I tolerated Mel. Um, I didn't like Mel's drumming, and when he bought the Chinese cymbals, he discovered the doggone Chinese cymbals, and he put a Chinese cymbal on his drum kit, and I just hated that. He didn't take any of the rivets out,
Right.
and it just was, and it just annoyed the crap out of me. I was the one that was always going to Thad on breaks and saying, Elvin, why don't you get Elvin? Why don't you get Elvin? Why can't you make it the Thad and Elvin big band? Get Elvin.
Yeah, yeah. Get his
and,
brothers, right?
and he'd go, Runyon, because he called me Runyon. He said, Runyon, get out of here. I'd be like, You know, everything I say, that was my music school. So everything that I know about music and that I hear in music, and my ability to be able to stay acoustically aware so that I can, if something changes, I can change right with it. That
Yeah.
all was born out of that 4-year relationship with Thad and Mel, because Thad treated me like he treated his horn players. Thad didn't suffer fools, but he did it with me in a gentle way.
Yeah.
But he did it, you know. So Thad would, when we would be at the Vanguard, you know, that stage area was so small. When you put a big band in there, I mean, there's just room to stand. So I stood next to Thad, looking out at the audience in the club, and of course he's looking at the band. So we were shoulder to shoulder. And he would literally just lean in and whisper in my ear, "We going back to letter E, or we going back to letter F." Well, as I didn't know what the arrangement was, all that meant I just had to listen and be able to go wherever the band was going.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, I think that's how I ended up on the one album that they invited me on, and that was Sweet for Pops.
Mm.
And that even happened in a completely improvised situation. I was there at the studio, and I remember I was sitting with Quincy Jones, because Quincy was in town, and he loved that, and so he was there for the recording, and there were other people, but I can't remember who. I just remember I was sitting with Quincy,
Right.
and you know, Thad says, "Okay, get up the next song, you know, it's the great one." And then he goes, "Runyon, you singing on this one." And I went over, I was like, "Thad, I don't even know what this song is. I never heard it before." He said, "Just keep them big ears open. I'll point you in it, and I'll point when you got to come out."
Wow.
And they played, and I sang. And, you know, I used to call myself Dumbo. They called me Big Ears. The band, they called me
Yeah.
Big Ears. So yeah, ours, you know, I loved that. And I was able to reunite with that when I first had moved to France. And that was in '86. And I got a gig in Copenhagen at the Club Montmartre, which was a very famous jazz club in Copenhagen.
Yeah.
And Thad came. Oh my gosh. I mean, and I cried and I cried. I cried. And then he said, "Runyon, why don't we do a gig?" The guy that ran the club that was inside of the Tivoli Garden,
Mhm.
what is Anders' last name? I can't remember his last name right now, but it was called the Jazz. I'm probably going to mispronounce it. Jazz Sloofkester is how I remember it. So he hired us. So we had Kenny Drew. I mean, it was, you
Oh,
know,
man.
the expats, Ed Thigpen, Danish bass player. I I can't remember. I
It'll
can't
come to
remember.
you. Yeah.
But it was that gig, having Thad playing, and he had started playing his little pocket trumpet, because you know he'd had the accident where he'd been hit in the mouth, and so he had gone to Europe after that incident. Thad was
Mm.
quite a Thad was quite a ladies' man,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I had to fetch him on several occasions, you know, and he and Roland Hanna loved to drink. And so sometimes they would close bars down, and Mel would call me up. I'd be asleep and I'd have to go downstairs in whatever hotel we'd be in. Pregnant. I was pregnant at the time, and go and get that out of bars,
Oh,
you
wow.
know. Yeah, oh yeah. So I was that person, you know. And because they knew, Mel knew, you know, that Thad would listen to me. I could just nudge him and say, come on, Thad, let's go, you know. Having that big belly helped, I suppose. But you know, the way that I do a set list when I'm performing, I've really tried to follow the way Thad taught me, which was, he said, "Runyon, come out with something hard hitting so you get their attention, then slow it down a little bit. You can do a swing, or you can do a waltz, or you know, and then slow it down a little bit more, and maybe do a bossa nova, and you know what I'm saying, and then do a ballad, and then bring it back up." And so I've always followed that.
Yeah.
And Thad also told me not to listen to singers. He said, you have an ear, you've got an ear like a sponge. So whoever you're going to listen to, you're going to sound like them. And I also can kind of imitate. And so he said, don't listen to singers. Just listen to your favorite instrument. Well, it was a trumpet.
Interesting. Yeah.
And then as a result of that, I always think of myself as my voice rather as a trumpet
Mm-hmm.
in the
Mm-hmm.
band. And
Yeah.
I try and do sounds like I hear coming out of the trumpet. So I think that's, that's that Freudian thing about your father and looking for your father. And so my daddy was a trumpet player. So I
Yeah.
love the trumpet, and my best relationships have been with trumpet players. And I mentored a trumpet player and got his career going good, Theo Croker.
Yeah.
And I always gravitate to the trumpet. If there's a trumpet in the room, I'm gone. I'm gone.
I love it. I love it. I was going to ask you about your debut recording. I believe it was 73, 74, Afro Blue. So
Yep.
incredible. I always love when
Yeah.
you do that. That song is just incredible, your version of it. And you always do it so many different ways every time I see you. But
Afro Blue.
oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I was just watching you the other day, the one that you did at the Clifford Brown Jazz Festival. Everybody was just up dancing and just like, we love you, Dee Dee. It was incredible.
Yeah.
But
That was pretty cool.
I
Yeah.
wanted to talk to you also a little bit about you're an actress also, and
Yeah.
you were Glinda in The Wiz.
Mm-hmm.
And tell us about that. I think that was what 75,
Well,
76 that you won the
well,
Tony.
the Tony Award I won in 75.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did the Wiz from 74 to 76. And then I had to go because I had a permanent Glinda smile. I was always walking around and talking like that,
You were so funny. Oh boy.
I'm telling you the truth. People was like, what are you smiling at? I'm like, I'm sorry, I've been smiling for 2 years, telling, Dorothy, click your heels,
Right.
and if you believe, it was a wonderful experience. Absolutely wonderful. I really feel that my life has been blessed in so many areas, but that was just wonderful. To become a part of a Black musical that has become
Mm-hmm.
historical.
Yeah.
So just I went from a historical jazz band where I was able to start and hone my voice. When I was with Thad and Mel, there was a woman that came, I guess about 2 years into me being with them. And her name was Gladys de Jesus, and she was Cuban.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, you need to learn how to project your voice.
Mm.
I want you to come and see me. And so I took several lessons from her, and she taught me how to breathe properly and how to push the notes out
Yeah.
without hurting myself. And so when I got to, and so then I could sing over the band, and you could really hear me after that with what she had taught, which I don't even remember anymore. It's habit. But when I did The Wiz, I was the only principal performer who did not wear a body mic.
Ah, okay.
So everyone else had a different sound. And I just relied on, because we had mics that they dropped down, and then we had mics in the floor. And as I knew how to project, I mean, like I can go from this to this, and I'm talking and I'm still projecting, but I'm not yelling. I've
Right.
just projected my voice so that the people in the room can hear me. And so I was able to sing and do all of my speaking, and the people in the audience heard the natural voice.
Mm.
And with everyone else, it was a little tinny.
Yeah.
And I used to go up and sit up in the balcony with the sound engineer. And so, excuse me, I'm turning my nose ring around. So I got it. And he went down one time and he just spoke to me without the body mic on. And I was like, oh, got it. So, but the whole experience, it was amazing. Gilbert Moses, who
Yes.
I left Cecil for Gilbert. Gilbert lived in West Beth, and I used to go to West Beth to hang with Stanley Cowell and his
Great,
lady back then.
great
Her name is
pianist. Yes.
Vicki McLaughlin. And, yeah, and so we would rehearse sometimes because I would play with Stanley and Charles Tolliver. And that was back when they'd started Strata East.
That's right.
All up in all of that
Music Inc.
cool
That's
stuff.
right. That's
You
good
know what I'm
stuff.
saying? So that was
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
And then, but Gilbert was an amazing actor's director,
Mm.
just amazing. And so my audition, I had 2 auditions without him, and then I went away with Thad and Mel for the summer. And I just thought, I just went to open casting calls because Stanley Cowell's lady back then, her name was Vicki McLaughlin. I wonder if she might be alive. She was friends with the casting lady. And so she told me about the casting calls.
Yeah.
And so I went and then I went away and I was gone for 2 months and I came back and they said, oh, they want to see you again. I was like, I thought the whole thing has been cast. They said everything but Glinda the Good Witch. I was like, oh. So I went and my audition, they didn't tell me, was with Gilbert.
Oh, wow.
And Gilbert had me do some improv exercises, acting improv exercises, and he had me run around this studio that we were in. And while I was running around the studio, he had me saying lines.
Mm.
And then he would do I forget what he called it, but he would clap his hand and then he would say something, and then I had to go into a scene. I had to just make stuff up, improvise, and then he would clap, and I'd have to do that again. And then he just made me do more exercises and stuff. And I just remember watching him rehearsing with Stephanie and how good he was, and
Yeah.
with everybody. So he, I think, was able to, and because it was more of a fantasy, and you have a lion, a tin man, a scarecrow. What are they? Lion, the tin man, the scare.
Yeah, I
That was
believe
it.
you're right. Yeah.
That was it. Anyway, he just got these great performances out of everybody,
Mm.
and Eveline and the Good Witch of the North, Ada Pearl, so Mabel King, Clarice Taylor. It was just amazing. And then we had a makeup artist who taught us how to do theatrical makeup and taught us, and he would go out and look at us and tell us what we needed to change up and create. He helped us to create, our different faces, for the different characters. And so that was fantastic. And then he did the hair. And so he was working with everybody because then they decided, well, I think I was shaving back then. Yeah, I had shaved my head. So Jeffrey Holder made me my famous hat piece with my dreads going up in the air
Right.
with rhinestones all over it. So that was fabulous. It was a wonderful experience because it was a Black experience.
Yes.
The whole experience was Black. So my first big theatrical experience then becomes part of this historical Black musical, the very first to ever do Broadway. And our producer Ken Harper, was Black. It was just Black.
Yeah.
And it was wonderful. We did, the money came from a white source. It was from 20th Century Fox, and I guess this man was the intermediary, but he had the hots for me. And we were 6 weeks in tryouts because in those days, when you were doing a Broadway show, you tried it out on
Right.
the road, and then you fine-tuned it on the road based on the critics and the reviews that you would get. So this man would come to each city, and he would send an usher backstage to say he'd want to see me. And of course I refused him very graciously. I tried to, and then finally he was really persistent, and I said to him that I wouldn't sleep with him if he was the last man on earth. I'm sorry. and Gilbert was fired. And I said, oh, and I'm with Gilbert. And so he says, oh, I'll fix that. So they fired Gilbert.
What?
And then he came back and he says, well, you don't have an excuse now. He's been fired. I said, but I'm still with him. And then he tried to fire me. And that is how my role became 5 lines of dialogue and half a song.
That's
He could, they,
crazy.
yeah, he had,
I don't think you've ever told that story to anyone before, have you? In an interview.
oops.
Dee Dee, you're funny. Hey, look, I was going to ask you, you were also part of Sophisticated Ladies too, right?
That was conceived with me in mind, with Judith Jameson and Gregory Hines. And
Mhm.
when they got ready to do it, I had separated with Gilbert and then gotten back together with him. And I was really, and then I'd become a born again Christian, and we're in LA. And then that would have meant I would have had to come back to New York. And I didn't think that our marriage could stand it. So
Yeah.
I told them I couldn't do it. I said, but I know someone that'd be great. And I said, that's Phyllis Hyman. Why don't you get Phyllis?
Wow.
And that's how that happened.
Yeah. I think Norman Connors discovered her, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Phyllis Simon. Now, also, you had a bit part in a movie, I think it was 76, 77, The Fish That
Oh,
Saved Pittsburgh with Julius Irving, who was in that. You had a small part. Tell us about that.
oh, well, I ended up on the editing room floor. Don't break up with a husband who directed a movie that you're in until after it's edited.
Oh, wow. Wow. Oh,
So he couldn't cut me all the way out because, I was best friends with Debbie Allen's character. And so, we had these scenes in the stadium and stuff that he just couldn't cut out. And I'll
right.
never forget. I got great reviews that said, Dee Dee Bridgewater has great comical sense. Too bad she wasn't in more scenes.
Right, right, right. That's funny.
But I call that movie The Fish That Saved Pittsburgh and Ate My Marriage. Because we split
Wow.
up after that.
Wow. I'm
Yeah,
so sorry.
yeah.
Now,
Hey,
you
stuff
moved to
happens.
yeah, I was going to say you moved to France. Why did you move to France, Dee Dee? And you ended up staying for quite a while too.
Yeah, I moved and stayed for 24 years,
Wow,
half my adult life.
that's amazing. So
And it's kind of in the back of my head about going back because I don't know where we're going here.
I know.
Um, but I moved. I was touring, doing an international touring company of Sophisticated Ladies, and we were in Japan for 6 weeks, and then we came to Paris. And after Paris, we were supposed to go to London. And something happened with the monies, and so London didn't happen. And when we got to Paris, the French being the French, and not liking to do anything like anybody else, changed the poster
mm,
for Sophisticated Ladies from the 3 legs, the Art Deco looking, okay, and put a picture of me
wow.
coming down this staircase that I had to come down, um, singing in a sentimental mood. And that was the picture with Sophisticated Ladies over, and it was me coming down. So I kind of became the toast of Paris, and got very much into the club life, the nightlife, because back then we had clubs, dancing clubs like discos, and so I never saw Paris in the daytime.
I got it. You know what, Dee Dee, I got a live recording, if I'm not mistaken, many years ago. I think it was from 1987 that you did over there, which was fantastic. Love it. And
Oh, yeah, Live in Paris is
that
called.
that's it. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
really really nice. And but like I said, it's almost like you were still doing the music, and we were still hearing from you. And one of the things that I really really loved, I think it was the beginning of the late 80s, 89, 90, you did that live in Montreal, which was fantastic.
Oh,
You
and
did
Live in
you did
Montreux.
yeah, you did that
Yeah, Montreux.
little it was a couple of Horace Silver songs, and
Oh, a medley. I did a
yeah, that
medley.
medley.
And
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was Sister Sadie,
Yes.
Sister Sadie, and then it went into,
I don't
didn't it
remember.
go into Peace? And it came out with Senior Blues.
Yeah, I believe Senior Blues was one of the
Senior
tunes.
Blues was the end, yeah.
Yeah,
Or
that
maybe it
was
was Senior Blues, it was first, Then it was whatever was in the middle, and Sister Sadie
Yeah,
ended it.
it was a few songs, but it was great. And I remember everyone was talking about that around that time. Now, a few years later, I guess about 94, 95, how did you hook up with Horace Silver and end up doing that recording? Because I think I had heard something that he wanted to write the lyrics to the songs that
Oh,
you
he
did.
did. He
And
did.
when I first heard that, I'm like, Dee Dee, this is incredible. I says, I have never heard anyone do Horace Silver songs like that, and especially the way you did St. Vitus Dance and Pretty Eyes is just amazing. The way you
Oh,
sing
thank
that,
you.
you just, ooh, I mean, that was beautiful. I also have another one of your shows that you did in Montreal, 1995, and you did all the songs from that recording. I'm like, you just came out dressed in
Oh, yeah.
came in dressed in all white, looking so fine. I
Yes,
said, Dee Dee
I
looks
was
great.
wearing, yeah, that's what I was,
And
that was my Issey Miyake period too.
man, that was
Oh,
great.
yeah,
I
Issey
was
was
like,
dressing me.
that was fantastic. You were just killing it. Still one of my favorite recordings, and I still have it
Mine
in the car.
too.
I'm listening to it too because it's like
I'm
everyone's like,
very proud of it.
what was it
You
like
know,
working with?
well, first of all, I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do
Mm-hmm.
for my next album. And I had gotten, when I released the first album, Keeping Tradition,
Yes.
when I was with Polydor, I produced that. You know, I got production credits, and so then I started producing. So they said, okay, we want you to do your next album. What do you want to do? I can't do an album if I don't really feel it. So I can't like just come up with some project idea and then put it together.
Right.
It has to be something that I'm like truly, truly feeling. And I'll never forget, I was on stage. Um, I don't remember where, but in France, and we were doing the medley, and or maybe I was doing isolated, just Love Vibrations, which was the song I got kicked off the stage for.
Right. Right.
Um, I might have been doing that, but it was a light bulb moment because I said, this is who I love. I
Right.
love Horace Silver. Let me do a Horace Silver album.
Mm.
And that was also when I was trying to start perfecting, you know, the scatting more rhythmically.
Oh,
And so that's how it all kind of happened at the same time, simultaneously. So I called Horace and told him, I said, Horace, I'm going to do an album of your music. And I mean, he was so stunned.
really?
My takeaway, I can't remember exactly what he said, but he was like, I never, you know, because you know he had a little tiny little stutter. I never thought that a singer
That sounds just
would
like
be
him.
the
Oh, you got
would be
Horace
the
down.
would be the first one to do my music. And I was like, well, is that a bad thing? And he was like, well, no, I'm honored. I'm just surprised. And so it was the beginning of this relationship.
Yeah.
And so I told him, I said, listen, I'll come back, you know, with the songs that I'm thinking about. And so, and then, you know, we can discuss further. And he's like, okay. So then I put my songs together, and then I go back, and several of the songs had lyrics on them by John Hendricks.
Mm.
And he says, well, you know, those songs that John did the lyrics for, he said, you know, our publishing deal is over. So you can't use those lyrics. I was like, but Horace, everybody knows those songs with those lyrics. He says, I will write you all the lyrics. And I went, okay. And he did. But he's not a lyricist.
Right.
So some of the words did not marry well with the melody and the synchronization, you know, of the melody and where the word placement should fall. So when we started rehearsals, and then I had a bass player, a Dutch bass player who was doing all of my arranging then. His name is Hein van de Geijn.
Mm-hmm.
And I had told Hein for this album, I said, I want you to do arrangements where I'm the third horn, because I wanted his classic quintet, you know, with the tenor saxophone and the trumpet. And then I said, and then just think of me as the second trumpet. And I really want the harmonies married tight. And then I just want to kind of float on top. And everybody, the sound engineer I was working with then, you know, he was like, this isn't gonna, I said, listen, y'all, this is what I want. And I said, just mix me just slightly above, but it's got to sound like, you know, three horns.
Right.
But, you know, I'm saying, and so that's how we did it. Because I said I wanted it to be really, I wanted it to smack of if you were hearing Horace Silver with his quintet, I wanted it to have that same vibe, and I wanted to respect that that's how he heard his music, um, uh, and that's how it was performed. You know, so when he came back with these,
You made it work, Dee Dee. I'm telling you, you made it
oh,
work.
but we had to, you know, why? How? I rehearsed. I went on tour for 6 months.
Oh, wow.
We did this music before I went into the studio.
Ah, okay.
So I was able to get it down, you know, and but he wrote me one song that I and it was Mexican Hip Dance. He put lyrics, I'll never forget that moment. Because we were rehearsing and I was like, Horace, we're rehearsing, but you still haven't done the lyrics for Mexican Hip Dance. And he says, oh, okay. And Horace called me back, I think about 45 minutes. It couldn't have even been an hour. At least it didn't seem like it. And he says, go to your fax machine. I just sent you the lyrics. You know, we were at a rehearsal studio. So I go into the room and I asked, do I have a fax? And they give me the fax and I read the lyrics. I'll never forget. I called him back. I said, Horace, I can't do this live. He's like, well, I got inspired. I was sitting on a throne and I got inspired. And that's what it's about. If
Wow.
you venture down to Mexico, you're taking a chance, because the water down in Mexico will sure make you dance. You will do the bathroom trot and it won't be slow. You won't get no sleep at night because you got to go. They got water down in Mexico, but don't take a sip, because the water down in Mexico goes straight to your hip. You will do the bathroom trot and it won't be slow. You won't get no sleep at night because you got to go. And then you scat. And I'm like, Horace. He says, but did you think about it? Most of the people won't know what you're saying. I said, but I do.
Right.
I do. I said, I'm not doing that. I said, I will do that live. I said, but I'm not putting that on the album. I'm not doing that. And then I asked him to come to Paris and to play on it. I said, can you validate this? Please come and play and be with the musicians, because everybody was just so, you know, enamored with him and his music. And so he agreed. And then I don't know, one night I was listening to Filthy McNasty and I was listening to the songs and I was like, oh, I need an organ.
Mm,
And I love Jimmy Smith.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And Jimmy and Thad were good friends. And, you know, when we would play in LA, we would go and hang with Jimmy. And Jimmy would take me for rides on his motorcycles because, you know, Jimmy had motorcycles. Jimmy was a bad boy.
Yeah, yeah.
I love Jimmy. I love bad boys.
Dee Dee, you're funny. But like I said, that was just an amazing recording. St. Vitus Dance is one of my favorites, as I said. And the way you sing Pretty Eyes and the way the horn lines go, I'm like, man, I played that for a friend. And like, man, who is this? I said, that's Dee Dee Bridgewater. Like, I've never heard Dee Dee do anything like this. I said, she's doing Horace Silver's music. Incredible, incredible.
Yeah.
Just like I said, all these giants you work with, I was just thinking, you know, Sonny Rollins, Max Roach, Rashawn Roland Kirk. You've worked with so many greats, and that's what I'm saying. There is no artist out there like you that has performed with all these people. I said Dee Dee is at the very, very top. I mean, if Aretha Franklin calls on you and she likes you, you know, you that means something. That means a lot. And I remember you talked about that when I saw you at the center, you know. But I wanted to also ask you about Jazz Set that you did for 23 years.
No, I didn't. I did it for 13.
Was it 13?
Yeah, Branford did it for 10. But I have
Ah.
obviously obliterated Branford, which makes me very happy. So every once in a while they say 23 years and I just go,
But tell me about that. What was it like doing it? Because I've listened to many of those and you were great, by the way.
Oh,
Great.
you know, Jazz Set was funny. I mean, how I got involved is Becca Pulliam contacted me to replace Branford. He couldn't do a show. And I'm in Paris. And I had been doing a show with a woman named Elizabeth Blair, Elizabeth Blair. And it was an NPR show, and it was called Le Jazz Club from Paris. And that only lived like 3 years, but Becca had heard some of those shows and she really liked it. And so she asked me if I would do a show. And so I was like, sure. And they send me the script, and it's all scripted, And so I started, and at the end of the first one that I did, I was like, ooh, I like this. I said, if Branford wants to leave, I'd like this gig.
Right.
And so every time I'd have to do one, I'd like, if Branford wants to leave, and so finally she calls, she says, Dee Dee, Branford's leaving, but we don't know how we can do this with you, and you're in France. And I said, the same way we've been doing it. So, but she said, I asked Diane Reeves too. And I said, oh, no, this is my gig. And so,
Right.
so I got it.
It was
And
great.
it was just great. The unfortunate part is that, because I was touring and working at the same times as most of the artists who, we highlighted on the show, I was never able to do anything live.
Right.
And then they liked me so much at NPR that they said they wanted me to have the NPR voice. So they got this guy to come in. Man, did I kill him? I killed him. Oh my God, now I'm having a brain freeze. Now we love each other, but he quit like 3 times. He quit.
Wow.
Mark Stan, I can't remember his name, but at any rate, so hi, I'm Dee Dee Bridgewater, and you're listening to Jazz Set.
Smooth.
And, you had to keep it just very smooth. And so that's what I did. And so I have my NPR voice, I have my radio voice. What I find is interesting is they do that with women, but they didn't do it with the men.
Yeah.
And I was like, what's that about? But whatever.
Yeah, that was great.
But I loved doing it. I loved working with Becca. I loved working with Thurston Briscoe III from WBGO, who, had started it. And Duke Marcos was our engineer. And then I became very good friends with the woman that engineered when I would do the shows in Vegas, when I moved to Vegas. Her name is Ginger Bruner. And and we're all friends to this day.
Yeah.
We used to, when I would be in New York, Becca, Thurston, and Duke and I would meet and have dinners, and it was beautiful, and then when the change started happening at WBGO, and then Thurston was fired, I said to Becca, we've lost, our security blanket is gone.
Wow.
And then 2016,
yeah,
when Amy Niles came on board, she ended the show.
That was great. I tell you, I loved it. Now, I wanted to ask you about a very special recording of yours, one of my personal favorites. I wanted to talk about Red Earth.
Oh.
Your experience when you went to Mali, how it affected you, and you really wanted to get back to your African roots. Tell us about that, because I was watching sort of like a little making documentary on that, and I'm like, wow, this is heavy. I can tell this means a lot to Dee Dee, and just how it affected you when you were there. Talk to me about that.
Well, first of all, I have to preface it by saying I probably never would have gotten to that place if I had not lived in France.
Gotcha.
Because in Paris, I loved I just love being around my people.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, I bought a house in an area that the French considered a ghetto. I found this house. The house was really contemporary, and then I went to see it, and it was in a hood, and behind it was like 3 little streets, and it was surrounded by the projects. They call them HLM. I don't even remember what that stands for, but at any rate, so it was Black and Arab, just brown people. And so I lived, this house was in this city called Garges-les-Gonesse, which had a really bad reputation. And in 93, they had riots. And it butted up to another city where I just saw the most gorgeous Black people. I just never knew where these people were from. And that's called Sarcelles. Well, a lot of the rapping groups came out of these two areas, and Saint
Right.
Denis is the other area. I don't know. It's very interesting. I've always, up until I came back from France, I loved living in really Black popular neighborhoods. And
Yeah.
my third husband had been a street urchin, and so he was a toughie. I told you I like bad boys, and he was a bad boy. And
Right.
so we bought that house. Well, there were kids that would come through the projects and cut through and come down our street, because our street. Uh-oh, this is my daughter. Hold on. Um, where are you? There you are. Um, they would antagonize our dog. I had bought a boxer for my husband for his birthday, but as I had gone to visit the boxer, he was mine. So, but we had this boxer, and his name was Cesar, and we'd leave him in the yard. And the kids would tease him and get sticks and run it along our fence, because we had a wood slatted fence. And so they would just and it would drive Cesar crazy. So one day I got ready to go out and talk, and they were bad boys. And I got ready to go out. I just couldn't take it. And so my husband said, I'll go. I'd never seen him operate with bad boys. And when he got through, that sticks were on the ground. They never bothered our house again. And
Wow.
one of the boys ended up wanting to go into management. And so he was coming to our house. And so then we started having all these kids that were considered bad kids coming to our house
Wow.
and talking to them about music and how they could produce and all of that kind of stuff. So I would say, so we had a beautiful relationship. There was a girl whose father was very, very old, and they were very poor, and I was going to take her in, and you know, when I would have concerts that weren't too far, I would just grab a bunch of china. My second daughter, because Jelani had left back by then and gone back to the States for college, but I would grab her girlfriends and just throw them in the car. And I'd show up with these kids who didn't know anything about, you know, this kind of life possibility. We'd sleep on the floor. I'd get extra bed, you know. So I was that person, and so I got this reputation of being for the people
Mm-hmm.
when I lived in France. And I worked with SOS Racism, and I worked with a lot of different projects trying to bring more awareness to the fact that, yes, of course, racism exists in France, you know. And, you know, so when I got ready to, I was always, I remember, frustrated that my African friends could talk about the history of their families and the villages, and I'm like, I don't even know past my great grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we didn't have, you know, our family was not one of those griot families, so we didn't have any oral history. And then my family is so diluted. You know, I used to say that I'm a Heinz 57 variety. You know, but so it sparked in me this desire and also this frustration. And of course, my French friends could tell me all about their stuff, you know, to try and find at least my African ancestry, you know. Also, the fact that I love the drums so much. So I was like, I know it's there. So it was born out of that. And I couldn't do the DNA tracing back then because it was like $20,000 and I didn't have that kind of money.
True.
And so I decided that I would just listen to music from different African countries and see if it spoke to me, because I'm an intuitive person. And Ira Coleman was my bassist at that
Oh,
time.
I recall.
And Ira worked a lot in West Africa with a lot of different West African musicians. And so he had quite an impressive collection of CDs. And so when we would get ready to do the tours, you know, Dee, I will bring some CDs for you to listen to, you know, with his German background.
Right.
Okay, Ira. And so I would sit and we'd be on trains and I'd listen. And when he would play and he wouldn't let me see who it was, he would just put it on. So it's kind of like a blindfold test to see if I liked it without any influence. And when he would put on music from Malian musicians, I could now my accountant, I could hum the melodies with these griot songs. And so this just kept happening. And then it just became a thing with Ira. And he was like, I don't understand. You've got to go. And these musicians all came from Mali. He said, you got to go to Mali. He said, I think it's Mali. And so I went, and I had several spiritual experiences, and people told me, you know, I was from Mali, and they told me the tribe I was a descendant of. And they said, you are a descendant of the Peul, P-E-U-L. I met the president at the time, and he told me I was Peul, and oh my God, hold on.
Take your time.
There's something urgent. Hold on. I'm gonna go away for a second.
Okay, take your time.
I was going to, okay, on, okay. Okay. All right, I'm back.
That's okay.
At any rate, you know, when I went, I also have a fascination for Red Earth.
Mm-hmm.
I just love Red Earth. And when I was living in France, and I would be touring, in particular in Italy, there were regions where there was a lot of red earth, and I would have cars pull over, my drivers, on the shoulder of the highway so I could get out barefoot and walk. Oh my God, go away. And walk in this red earth. So when we got to Mali, when we were at the airport, we landed at like around midnight, 11 or midnight. And an old man came up to me and starts fussing at me, but I don't know the dialect. And he's saying, Terata, Terata. I said, okay, I think he thinks I'm a Terata. And I had a guide who also really, I should have given him co-producing credits, but I was so full of being a producer then. But he put together everything musically for me. So he came, and he's from Mali, and he had done that beautiful album with Hank Jones, Sarala, the African album that Hank Jones did. And I had heard that anyway. So his name is Sheikh Tidi and Sek. So, and he's kind of like a brother for me now. He came with us to be our guide and to introduce me to musicians, and just to, you know, introduce me to Mali and Bamako, and, you know, and so I went to him and I said, Sheikh, this man, he's fussing at me and he won't leave. And he was like following me. And I was like, can you speak to him? I answer him in French, but he just I don't know what he's saying. But I said, I can tell he's fussing at me. So Sheikh speaks to this older man, and this man says, that is my niece, Tarata. What was Tarata Diallo? No, Diallo. Anyway, I remember the first name.
Wow.
And she's come a day early, and she's coming back from her studies in Europe. And I see now that she has become very European. She doesn't even want to act like she knows me.
What?
And Sheikh could not convince this man that I was not his niece.
Wow.
And so that was my first thing. And I said, okay. And I thought for a long time to name Terata Diallo. I said, people aren't going to be able to say that. I'm not going to call the album Terata Diallo. No. And I don't know what I mean. Anyway, and the next morning we wake up, and I had shared with Sheikh about this love of Red Earth. He says, oh, my sister, when you get to Mali, I want to see. I opened up the curtains in this hotel I was staying in, and the earth was this red. And all of the buildings had been done with this red earth, this kind of terracotta,
right?
You know. And I was like, oh my goodness. And then we had like a railing. We didn't have a balcony, but we had our windows open, and we had this railing so you wouldn't fall out the windows. And we were having breakfast the second day we were there, and this amazing green parakeet came, and then a second one came, and then a third one came, and they just sat on the railing. And so Jean-Marie left to take photographs, so he went and he crawled, and he got his camera, and he crawled, and I said, you're going to click them, they're going to fly away. He was able to get 2 pictures before they flew away, so we showed Sheikh, and Sheikh says, those are your ancestors. This is a sign that you are home.
Wow.
in our culture. And these are very rare parrots.
Wow.
And so I had that happen. And then they told me I was Pearl. And then fast forward to 2015, and I did my ancestry,
Yes.
AfricanAncestry.com. And we did the reveal at the Blue Note. And I'll never forget, Gina Page says, "Oh, Dee Dee, I'm sorry, you're not Malian, you're Nigerian, but you are 100% Fulani on your mother's side, 100%. And you have living relatives, if you ever want to go, that have the same DNA." I was like, this is crazy. Well, when my daughters and I, because I had my kids come in and,
Yeah.
for this reveal, because family is important to me, and history and our ancestors and honoring, and I think that's why I always have tried to honor the Ellas and the Sarahs and the
Right.
Billies and the, Carmens, because these are the women on whose shoulder I stand,
Yes.
and these are the women who open their arms to me, so it was the same for the history. So she says Fulani. So my daughters, I have a son also, but my daughters were like, we got to look this up. Well, the Fulani is a tribe. It's, first of all, it's a nomadic tribe.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always moving. It is a tribe where the men respect the women,
Yeah.
where the women can be like warriors. And it is a tribe that when it migrated and moved north and went into Mali, they are known in Mali as the Pul.
Wow. That's amazing.
So I was not wrong.
That's incredible.
So that whole thing was just, me wanting to make that connection with mother, the motherland. And then when I would go to hear the musicians play, I'm telling you, I be in them drums and I'd be like, I gotta go. I gotta get that. I gotta hit that. So I would go to all these different clubs with Sheikh and my husband, and I would end up sitting in and scatting with these musicians, and they'd never heard this. Or I'd sit in and I'd just start making up words.
Mm.
And it was just weird. So when you fast forward to me making the decision that I wanted to do that album, um, that was a huge undertaking, because in Mali they don't have anything. So I had to ship
Wow.
all of the recording equipment from Paris
Yeah.
to Bamako, and I put together. Al Schmidt has he's my sound guru. So I put him together with this young sound engineer, because I didn't have the funds to get out for that album. But I asked him if he would oversee it. And so I put him with the engineer that was going to work on the album,
Mm-hmm.
so that he could have the same equipment. He oversaw, us choosing all of the equipment. So we would have the same equipment that we would take to Bamako to record, that we would have in the studio where I was going to finish recording in Paris. So
Mm.
he oversaw all of that and how he would record everything. So it was it was something. It was something. I had something like 47 musicians.
Yeah, I saw that. I was looking at the liner notes, and I was just doing some research on them. I says, man, Dee Dee's got like an army behind her. Look at all these musicians. But
Oh
it was
yeah,
just an
it
incredible
was.
recording, you know?
And Umu Sangare, Umu is a true queen
Mm.
in West Africa. I mean, Umu owns trucking companies and has hotels. I mean, Umu, okay,
Yeah.
she's my sister. My sister's on another level.
Right, right.
Um, but she had created a kind of art center in the back of a hotel that she had, and so she and Sheikh organized for all of these musicians to come and play for me.
Mm.
And they would make these different groups, and they would be playing, and somebody would be singing, and it would just overtake me. And I would go and just start singing and making up. it was one of the most creative moments I ever had in my life. And then because Shake says, my sister, you are home. He says, I'm gonna give you a test. I want you to do the lyrics, and I would pick the songs. And so on the griot songs, he says, I want you to just write the lyric. I'm not telling you what we're talking about. And on every one of those songs, I wrote the lyric that corresponded with what the song was talking about in Bambara, or whichever language they were singing in. So it was a very spiritual experience. I was able to hear, I could hear the connection between the Malian music and jazz.
Yeah.
And blues. And I was able to like just jump into it because it just was natural for me. The musicians, Ira and Edsel Gomez and well, Menino was okay. He was the drummer percussionist, but they had to they would be analyzing it. And well, if it's, I was like, dude, it's this. Come in, it's right here. And they're like, I can't hear it. I was like, dude, stop analyzing. Feel it. Just feel it. I said, it's like double touch. It's like, and shove it in that hole.
Right.
It was like double touch. So for me, it was something normal. For them, it wasn't. But it was it was a glorious experience. Yeah. Glorious going to Basikou Kouyate's house. He and Ami Sako, his wife, and my son plays on that album. My son got my son is very spiritual, but he's in denial. It's okay. But he had started taking some guitar lessons, and he was sitting, we were rehearsing this song, Children Go Round, but we were also doing some other songs, and he says, I need to play, Mommy, I need to play. And so Basikou gave him a guitar, and he just started playing, and I was like, well, what? So, and he nicknamed him Santana. So we got Santana on the album, my son, and it was just, we stayed at the hotel of the Aminata Traoré, who had been the Minister of Agriculture.
Yeah.
And she had a hotel right in this quarter that she was helping to develop called the Quartier des Artistes, the artist quarters. And she had created a kind of, how would you call that, center across the street from the hotel, where artisanal center, where people would go and either build furniture or do leather works. And I mean, it was just, and all up and down the street, I mean, everybody knew everybody. And it was just, I don't know, I thought I was home. I saw my relatives and friends' faces, One of the musicians looked like a miniature Elvin Jones. I mean, I saw me. I said, oh my goodness. I think well, at least I am. I'm from this part,
Right.
And it was just a beautiful experience. Most of my African replica furniture, and I have a Dogon door. I bought a Dogon door. I didn't know about the Dogon, So I have this Dogon door. I've got this chair that's from Mali. All of my masks, most of them, not these though, but most of them are from Mali. And when I went to the National Museum in Mali, that's when I discovered that. I was like, how can this be?
Right.
That's it. It's the same with, so I was able to, that was the beginning of me recognizing my root, my ancestry. And then, and then when I came back, I mean, my dream with that album was I was going to do a trilogy. And I was going to do that album. And then the second album that I had envisioned, but it was just too big, was to do a blues album and to trace the blues trail. But to start at this old plantation that was renamed Dockery Farms, that was near, oh God, now I'm having another brain freeze.
Okay.
Anyway, I was going to start it there and do a recording on the steps of the commissary that some white kids had burned down. But that was where the, blues players would come on Sundays
Mm.
and perform. A lot of the sharecropper plantations in the early 1900s would allow blues musicians to come and play and the people to come and dance and play. And so they did that at this farm. So then I was going to trace it through Clarksdale and is it Clarksdale? Oh, my brain. I hate this. I hate
Okay.
this.
It's
Since we've been locked down. You're not having this problem where you can't find words and stuff.
Trust me, it happens to everybody. It's all
Ooh,
good.
but
It's all good.
at any rate, it was just, and I was going to bring over Basiku and with the Ngoni because the Ngoni is a precursor to the banjo. I had met a banjo player, and so I was just going to have him, and then it was going to be Joe Louis Walker because I loved
Mm.
him,
Mm.
and Kev Mo was going to produce it.
Oh yeah.
Kev Mo sent me to school. He said, Dee Dee, I will produce you and produce it, but you're going to have to learn the lives of all. He gave me like 25 artists. I was like, Kev, he said, you're not going to do blues if you don't really know the blues. I was like, so, and I was going to do this all the way up to Memphis. This
Yeah,
was the trail I was going to follow. And it was going to be a double CD.
I want to talk to you about Memphis. Yes, I'm ready. Beautiful. And it kind of caught me off guard. I'm like, this doesn't sound like something Dee Dee would do. Then I looked into this and I said, well, Dee Dee's upbringing, she was listening to a lot of this stuff on the radio. And then when I saw you perform it, when you came to the Columbia Festival of the Arts last year, I said, this is great, wonderful. And just to hear you sing Yes, I'm Ready and the Otis Redding song and just an incredible recording. Now, tell us more about that. Was that something that you just wanted to get back to as far as, you being born in Memphis, of course, and growing up in Flint, but what were you trying to say in that recording when
well,
you did that?
when like I was saying, I wanted to go all the way to Memphis with this big project.
Yeah.
And then that didn't happen. And I ended up doing what ended up being an album with Urban Mayfield and the New Orleans Jazz Orchestra. And so that was a huge detour. And so I also had decided, I had taken a couple of trips going back to Memphis just to, try and see where I was born and to see if the chapel still existed that I was born in and, just and see if I could find information out about my father. And
Yeah.
I had become friends with Kirk Whalum, and Kirk is from Memphis, and Kirk had moved back there. And, and so Kirk at that time was working with the Stax Museum and the Academy, and he took me on a tour, my daughter Talani and I on a tour of the Academy, and I found a picture of my father in one of the display cases in a band that I'd never heard him even mention. My father's very closed-lipped, so I don't know anything about my father's life.
Wow.
And Charles Lloyd was one of my dad's students in high school at Manassas High School. And then Charles told me we did a TV show in Switzerland together with a mutual friend of ours. And during the taping of this show, he just starts telling me about my father.
Wow.
And it ended up being like 2 hours.
Wow.
I'm going to see if I can get from Yvon. This is the man that did it. His name is Yvon Isher. The tapes.
Yeah, you definitely need a tape of that.
Because it's Charles Lloyd telling me on TV all of this stuff about my father. And they had a band together. I mean, I was like, what are you saying? So, I learned a lot of stuff about my daddy and also about him being a womanizer,
Oh,
and my father was good friends. This is how deep this stuff goes.
right.
My father, so I want to go back to Memphis because I need to, because I'm following my spirit once again. And I'm thinking I'm going to connect all this music. But one time that I go, I hear Baby, because they've got all that music piping into the airport from the golden era of Memphis when it was Soulsville. And I said, this is what I know. Forget the blues. This is what I know.
Right.
And nobody knew I knew this because, you know, as I say on the album, this was my secret garden. I didn't tell anybody I'd found, you know, WDIA because I couldn't get it until 11 at night.
Mm-hmm.
And I would listen until like 2 in the morning. And then I didn't want to get up for school. So my parents thought I had a sleeping, disorder as a teenager. And I wouldn't tell my sister because then she would blab it and I'd get in trouble.
Right.
I couldn't tell my girlfriends because they came over all the time and then they'd be saying something about it. So I didn't tell anybody. And I don't even know how at 16, I'm a devious person. I figured out that I could put my blanket or a pillow or some sweaters at the door, under the door, the crack of the door, and the sound wouldn't go out of my room. So, and then I would get in my little twin bed, pull all the covers up, and I had my aluminum foil on the antenna so I could adjust it, and I would just listen to this music. Oh my God, and I guess the thing that I loved about the Memphis the Memphis soul at the same time as you know, the whole Motown sound was happening is it was dirty. It was dirty. It was gritty. It was gospel-y. It was bluesy. It was soulful.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It just had a grit to it. It had a rawness to it. And I just always loved that, you know? So then at the same time, my mom was starting to transition. She had dementia, and I knew that her death was going to be like in the next 6 months. And I said, I'm going to need something to buoy me so I can heal.
Yeah.
And so I decided that was the music I needed to do. And so that's how that all
You told a beautiful story. Yeah, you told a beautiful story at the Kennedy Center about your mother. God rest her soul. I remember you shared that with the audience. And also, Dee Dee, I wanted to ask you, you also received an honorary doctorate from Berkeley.
I received an honorary doctorate from Berkeley and an honorary doctorate from the University of Michigan.
Amazing.
Flint, yeah, the Flint branch.
Yeah.
Well, the you know, I think Terry Lynn has something to do with that. She has never told me. But at any rate, I became, you know, I got an honorary doctorate from Berkeley, and then they asked me to do the commencement speech. Well, Lord have mercy. That was a moment, you know, and I'm trying to go, what am I going to talk about? And so, you know, I wrote my commencement speech at, I think, about 3 in the morning of the day of the commencement exercises, because I couldn't find it. And I just, you know, and I pray because, you know, for everything I do, I need to have clearance.
Yeah.
And so we could say spiritual clearance, but I need to hear that voice say to me, you're doing the right thing. Or if I know it's the right thing when it just flows, you know, so when it came to me, I was done in a half hour.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and it was wonderful, you know, because Berkeley is so highly regarded around the globe.
Yeah.
You know, that they would do that with me, you know, was quite something. I am that artist who doesn't really believe that I'm as good as people say. I have moments of great insecurity.
Dee Dee, you would never know. I'll tell you.
Well, you know, and then I go out on stage and then I'm transported, you know.
Exactly.
I've had friends say, oh no, I see you. I see the Dee Dee that I know, that I talk to, leave. And then this other thing, it's a thing happens. And then you go out and you're in your world. There's something that is so magical, even in my worst moments, even at my most tired, there's still something magical about sharing a space with other musicians and creating a kind of dialogue.
Yeah.
You know, it's really wonderful. I'm listening to, I decided to record my 5 nights at the Blue Note back in February.
Oh, wow.
Only
Wow.
because I just, I'm working in different formulas, when when everything shut down. But one of my formulas is with a trio, and it's a young trio, and really, we're doing really more like classic jazz stuff, but I just think they're great musicians, and I just wanted to give them some exposure. So I've been trying to get through. I've got 3 more second shows to listen to. But I will say this: I don't like listening to myself. And
That's surprising. Wow.
I was sharing with a psychic that I was talking with, and I was saying that to her. I said, I'm having the greatest difficulty because I don't like hearing my voice. She says, but you have to listen to your voice from the point of view of your audience.
Mm.
And you have to allow yourself to get into the energy that is emanating from the recording, and don't listen to your voice.
Interesting.
And she said, listen to the whole thing. And I was like, so I was able to start listening again.
Wow.
And
Interesting. I've
and
never heard anyone say anything like that before.
well, she's not from music.
Mm.
She's not from music. And so she was coming from a whole other place. And, so we were speaking about spirituality and all of these things that I've experienced in my life. And so it came out of that. And, yeah, so I've been during the pandemic and us being shut down. I've just been really trying to follow my spirit, that spirit voice in me. And the spirit has me being home and being ordinary and,
Mm.
doing the things that I would never get to do. Um, I'm mending things that I've carried with me for years, finding just stuff to fix things that I've been looking for years. And then I'll go someplace and there it is.
Yeah.
The voice told me, I said, I feel like I'm Noah's Ark here, because the voice said, get a generator, get a whole house generator,
Yeah.
get a rack, raise it up off the ground. You don't want it on the ground. Then it was like, do this in your house and do that, get this thing done, get that thing done. And so I've just been doing it. Now, lately it's been saying, get a boat. And I'm like, come on now, God, come on.
You
Get a
are
boat.
funny.
Get a boat, but get a getaway boat in case it floods.
Yeah. Yeah. That
We
makes
are
sense.
this is global warming we are experiencing here, okay?
Yeah.
We haven't had to go to the Greek alphabet in 50 years for the hurricanes. We've gone through all 24 names, and now we're in the B's.
Yes. Yes.
I
This is
didn't
true.
hear the A. So we're in some seriously changing times. And so I'm just trying to be still to know what my involvement is and what my purpose is going to be. Trying to keep myself open to invitations to do stuff that is unusual for me, that I consider unusual, because we just don't know where we're going.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't know. And performing, the only way I could perform is, but they're getting ready to shut back down now too. Europe is, the cases are rising, but
They're going through another case. Yeah.
yeah,
Are you live stream or Dee Dee, are you live streaming any of your shows on your Facebook page or social media?
what shows? You have
I
to
mean,
have shows to live stream.
are you getting together with like musicians? Because some people are doing that.
I just said what shows. I had an opportunity to do, and I could probably go back to him. There's a bass player here that I absolutely adore. His name is James Singleton.
Okay.
And we did a duo gig at a little small club. It's a place that's where you go and do the things that you don't ordinarily do. So you work with musicians you don't ordinarily. And it's called the Sidebar. And it's fold down chairs that they put in this room. And I think maybe you can get 30 people.
Right.
in there. And you have to perform acoustically, no sound system, and but it's cool. And I've just seen the coolest stuff there. So I did a gig with him there, and yeah, so he wanted to do something, and the club wanted me to go in and do something, to help them, and I was like, dudes, I am 70, I am immune compromised, I'm not that person.
Right. Right. I got you.
And at the beginning, they were like, you gotta sanitize the whole space, and it was back then, and I was like,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
so now I would entertain doing, a live stream. I've just was watching them. I don't think I'll be able to finish it. Um, Bill Charlap, because I'm doing dates. I was doing dates with Bill, and we were starting to plan on an album and stuff. So he just sent me a link to watch the live stream that he
Great.
did. Was it last night or the night before last? I think with Wynton Marsalis.
Okay. Okay.
And so I'm listening to that. But no, I haven't done any live streams, sweetie.
Well, I look forward to seeing you next year. You're scheduled in my area at Keystone Corner
I
in March. And I will
know.
be there to support you. Hopefully, everything goes well because I just talked to Frida Payne the other day. Same thing. She was scheduled to be there in April. Now she'll be back in November. So I'm hoping things will go well. But that'll sell out because they know you're coming to town. That's going to sell out easily.
I don't
Baltimore,
think we're gonna.
this
Yeah.
place is really doing well. Ever since Todd opened it last year, Dee Dee, it's doing very well. And he's had everyone come through. So having you there will be
Oh yeah.
you know.
Oh yeah. Well, I love Todd, and I had done the Keystone Corner out in San Francisco.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I think I did it with Norman.
Norman Connors.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the times I went through was with Norman.
You've worked with everybody.
Oh, I
Yeah.
don't know. What starts to happen is memories collide.
Yeah.
So I have memories colliding. I've had a couple of times where the memories have collided and I've taken one situation and put it in another. But then I say yes, but you're working with 50 years of memories.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
like, and I'm also that person that if I meet somebody in the heat of the moment and I feel them and everything, and they say, "Can I get your number?" and I go, "Sure."
Dee Dee, you are crazy. You are funny.
And I give my
Oh, there you go.
so I apparently I gave my number to these sisters that I met at the Detroit Jazz Festival last year,
Wow.
and they called me yesterday, and I looked at this. I said, "Oh, this is a 313. Who is this calling me from Michigan?" And I answer, "Hi, we're the sisters that you met," and I'm like, "Sisters, okay." And then they're telling me, then I said, I need more information because I had just gotten off a business call and my brain was not
Right.
there. I said, I'm sorry, I need more information. I cannot pull up that screen.
Right. Right. Right.
So, and then finally, so I was like, I got to stop doing this stuff.
Yeah, you got to be careful. Well, listen, Dee Dee, listen, I want to thank you so much for being on Jazz Talk. It's been an honor to share this space with you. And I wanted to tell you something. You talk about names like Elephant. Oh,
I'm
you did.
sorry.
Oh,
Hold
okay.
on a second.
Okay.
Hold on. Oh my God. Oh, there's something bad going on. Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Okay. I will
I'm
get,
still with you. There you go.
Lord, they are.
You're back. But I was just going to tell you that we talk about Ella Fitzgerald, Billie
Mhm.
Holiday, Sarah Vaughan, and all them. Honey, you're in that same class too. And when I mention names like Diane Reeves, Liz Wright, and some of the others, Cassandra Wilson, they stand on your shoulders. So thank you for what you've been giving for the last 50 years. What a career. I love you and just continue making this great music, and I will continue also to support you. So thank you. Hold on,
Oh, thanks,
I'm
Preston.
about to
That's
close
so
out the show.
sweet.
I'm about to close out
Okay,
the
all
show.
right, okay.
Well, you've heard it from the great Dee Dee Bridgewater. And as the saying goes, if the music grooves and makes you move, it must be jazz. I'm Preston Williams with Jazz Talk signing off. Peace.